Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of The Comic Source. I have a returning creator, writer Chris Condon, joining us today. If you tuned into our DC Spotlight this week, you'll know it was my book of the week. Chris has been generous with his time before. He's being generous with his time now to come on and talk a little bit about Brutal Dark. And obviously, he has a lot of other stuff coming up, too, that will tease. Obviously, no spoilers, and we don't want to get Chris in any trouble, so I'm not going to dive too deep into the ultimate stuff, because honestly, we want to read it as fans. We want to experience it. So, first of all, let me say thanks for taking the time, Chris. It's always great to have you on.
Of course, thanks for having me. It's always great to be on.
So for anybody, like I said, that listened to the DC Spotlight this week, this was my book of the week, Brutal Dark. The last time Chris was on for 12 Days of the Comic Source, he kind of talked about this coming back with DC's new Vertigo line. Every one of the Vertigo books has been amazing so far, but for me, this has been my favorite one. So I know it's just been a couple days, Chris, but in terms of, this is a property that you and Jacob Phillips, your creative partner, had on digitally before on your Patreon. So you're bringing it back to kind of a new audience, if you will. So it's got to be a little bit nice to have it kind of out in the broader audience. And with just a couple of days under your belt, any feedback you've heard? Does it seem like it's been received well? What's kind of your initial feeling?
Yeah, I mean, largely the response has been positive, which is a great. I mean, to us that means it's a success. So it really feels like I don't know how to describe it exactly, but it's been a long time coming. I mean, even before it was a digital comic in 2020. I mean, I was drawing it as a comic book when I was in high school, and then I was in a film school and at university in Burbank, California, and I wrote it as a screenplay. So it's like it's constantly just been reconfigured as time goes on, and like to actually have it out there now and to have it have a positive response, to have it be I've talked to a few shops where it's sold out, so that means that people are buying it. So it's like it's really I don't know, it's a kind of a warm, fuzzy feeling to know that this thing that I've been wanting to tell for a very long time is actually finding the right audience that we intended it to, and then they're having the reaction that we hoped that it would have.
Yeah, I mean, there's some familiar tropes here. I mean, it definitely is a pulp
For
story,
sure.
kind of crime noir. Ezra Kane, the main character that you can see on the screen if you're checking us out on YouTube there, he's got a background in archaeology. You can't help but get these Indiana Jones vibes, but it is
Right.
completely its own thing. But talk a little bit about some of the inspirations. You talked about having this property, this idea, in the back of your head and working on it all this time.
Mhm.
So I imagine over the years, it's probably pulled inspiration from a lot of different places.
Yeah, I mean the inspirations are vast and varied, and it's I mean Indiana Jones for sure. Jacob and I are huge Indiana Jones fans. Kind of actually how the whole Vertigo thing came up was Jacob and I were trying to get the attention of Marvel, who we thought had the license to do Indiana Jones. So we had reached out, we just via Twitter, we had like put out into the world, a couple images and a page of a script of what we would do with Indiana Jones, and we heard nothing from Marvel or anybody. But we did hear from Chris Conroy, and he said, "Do you guys maybe want to come up with your own thing and do it here at DC, but do it under the Vertigo label?" Because he did tell us at the time that they were going to be doing a revamp of the Vertigo label. And that was kind of like a no-brainer, on our part. And yeah, so it kind of was always, it was kind of that, the Indiana Jones thing was kind of the ask from your Vertigo. Like they said, like we kind of want you guys to do that, and I was like, well, I got something in my back pocket that's kind of that. It's definitely got shades of that. It's definitely on purpose. And then it's also very much pulling from like Hellboy, which is also pulling from pulpy, the pulpy ancestors, as I've been calling them. But yeah, it again. It's like it's vast and very like you going back to like the reason it's set 1941 is both a story reason, because it's November of 1941 and something obviously very dramatic happens in America in December of 1941. Spoiler alert: Pearl Harbor
Yeah.
happened in December of 1941. But also, The Maltese Falcon came out in 1941, starring Humphrey Bogart and Sidney Greenstreet, and so we wanted to kind of pay homage to noir, pulpy influences. Batman the Animated Series was a huge influence on me. That's a classic sort of pulpy, set in this quasi 1940s futuristic retro world. And I always really loved that. So it's kind of just pulling from a lot of my favorite things, and I always loved the idea of like the noir era. That's just where it's kind of seemed like there was darkness around in the corners, there was darkness in the alleys, and there was crime was lurking, and there's few people that could kind of get in front of it and stop it, and I just kind of loved that idea, and that's kind of where Ezra came from and where this story came from.
Yeah, it with Jacob's art, it's so immersive. That's kind of one of the key words I kept using when I was reviewing it for the Spotlight, because it just feels like such a lived-in world. And really, the time period, it's so dichotomous in a way. Certainly we look back on it now as a more innocent time. The world wasn't as connected as it is now with all the technology and everything that we have. But whether we're talking Indiana Jones or we're talking brutal dark, yes, we're talking pulp, yes, we're talking crime noir, but also with that kind of supernatural kind of mystery and unknown, but also a more innocent time, but also a very formidable main character. So it's got all these kind of flavors, and I think that you and Jacob did just such a fantastic job of melding that together, because when you have so many elements like that, sometimes it can feel overstuffed, but I thought it was perfect in terms of pacing and the amount of story. Being that this had been kind of released as a digital comic before, do you think that helped kind of you guys kind of nail that amount of story and pacing and what have you?
Well, it was a different format when we were doing it digitally. It was the way we had planned on doing it, and we kind of started to do it. So we never actually finished the story
Right.
when we
Yeah.
told it on the Patreon. We got 3 issues in, and then we had to stop. And we actually really did 2 issues, and then we had to stop. And then there was it's like a year or something before we ever got to issue 3. We released issue 3 that Jake and I kind of said that we're like, this isn't plausible. We can't do this and do that Texas Blood. We're already doing one comic where we're working on the back end, and we weren't making enough on the Patreon to kind
Right.
of, make, have it be feasible. So we kind of just stopped at that point. We told everybody we were going to stop, and we were going to try to like morph the Patreon to be more like a podcast and this and that, and just kind of branch out and do a few different things. But the way that we had kind of planned on doing the book and how we did the first couple issues was that we were going to do them very much as the old serials like Radar Men from the Moon or Flash Gordon Conquers the Universe was, or even those old Batman serials. Like we would do a short, essentially, uh, you know, short comics. It was going to be 8 pages, and we'd end on a cliffhanger. And then we'd come back next month and we'd explain what happened after the, how did he survive,
Right.
that
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
thing. And it was really fun to do it that way. But obviously, in doing a comic, it's not quite the same. You can still do things like that, but it's not quite the same because you're not gonna, you don't have those short beats. Like it was essentially like you would have like a beat of action, and then you would take a break, and then you would come back the next month. It's kind of the plan. Um, and this kind of gave us room to. I mean, we had the comic to look back on and to see like what worked about it and what didn't work about it, and Jake kind of took some things from it that he wanted to, um, but then completely, reconfigured other things. And it is fun looking back at it now and kind of just seeing like how much we've improved in our storytelling and just our abilities to tell comic book stories. So it really it was fun to get to do that. Yeah, I don't know.
Well, the first issue's out, as I said, right now. Everybody, go pick it up. Hopefully, your local comic shop is not sold out. There's some fantastic variant covers as well. Tula Lute has one of them.
Oh yeah,
Uh, and then the second
I
issue,
love Hayden Sherman's too. Hayden Sherman's is
yeah,
great.
yeah. Hayden Sherman's got a fantastic one. There's a connecting one that connects all the characters from
Yeah.
these initial Vertigo relaunch titles. But I also want to mention while you're there, also a great idea to tell your local comic shop, hey, pre-order me issue 2. It comes out March 25th, and the subsequent issues, because again, the shelves are crowded, and you want to make sure that you don't miss out on a copy. I mean, we've seen recently some of these more kind of independent non-superhero books just go crazy with demand, and because they're underordered. So again, you don't want to miss out. Brutal Dark is amazing. So I want to remind everybody to pre-order. And look at that amazing cover by Jake for issue 2. Like, yeah, really really excited to see where it goes. So with that, let's talk a little bit about another property. You have a tendency at times for your books to be a little on the bleak side, and we certainly talked about this the last time you were on, because we had a couple of issues out. Now it's done. Everybody, there's a trade that actually is coming out this week. So this is being released on Monday. Kind of inside baseball. Chris and I are actually recording this on Friday, but it's going to come out Monday. So this coming week at your local comic shop, you can get the trade that collects all the issues of News from the Fallout that you did with Jeffrey Allen Love, which was fantastic.
Right.
And this isn't one of those stories where it's all tied up in a nice, neat bow, but I loved it. The artwork, like, I don't think you could have done the story with anybody but Jeffrey. And again, I just loved it. So looking back now that it's completed, even though you could come back to this, there are threads that you could pull out. Did it turn out the way that you had envisioned in terms of having it together as a complete story?
Yeah, I had this idea of how it was going to end with the radio.
Yeah.
And so I always kind of wanted to end it on that note, and I just, was kind of, I don't really I like to kind of let the script speak, so I kind of don't like to outline too much before I actually sit down and write a script. But with this, like, I had certain ideas of how I wanted things to go, but I still wanted to have the script feel organic. And there's some things that I'm very proud of in that final issue, not just the ending, which is something that I wanted to lead to, but something that I hadn't really planned on, but actually worked out because of Jeff's style. And seeing Jeff's style, I thought, well, I think we could pull this off. We had, I think it's like 4 pages of black panels, just completely black panels, and I think that they're pretty tense, which is kind of a hard thing to do. And so I feel like it really was just a testament to Jeff and Haas and myself kind of just working together and trying to tell a story to the best of our abilities. And I feel like we did it. And I feel like we tried to do something different that you don't typically see in comic books. And so, yeah, I'm intensely proud of it. It's not for everybody, and we knew that going into it. But it worked out exactly as I wanted it to, and even better. It was, and I feel like that's always or most of the time it's the case. And that's how I think what you would want, anyways. You would never want it to just sort of like live up to your expectations. I think you always want it to exceed your expectations. And there's every once in a while that doesn't happen. But this was a circumstance where, when I initially came up with the concept of what News from the Fallout would be. I mean, this is there's a introduction in the trade. I talk about the long genesis of this thing, which, like a lot of my stories, kind of had, roots way, 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 way back in the past. But it was very different then. And it just sort of grew into this thing. And I didn't always know that Jeff Love was going to do the artwork for it. But then when he came on board to do it, and I asked him if he wanted to do it, and he said yes, it kind of opened the doors of like what this thing can be with him on art, And I can't imagine it being a book without him, because there was almost a chance, there was almost a different book. There was I almost brought it to Aftershock after Hell's a Squared Circle, and thank God I didn't. But it couldn't have been the book it is without Jeffrey Allen Love. I don't think it would be half as good without him. So I'm really intensely proud of the final product, and I'm so happy with how it came out, beginning to end. I love all the back matter in it. I love the trade design. The trade design is really great. The end papers are really cool too. We used my father's yearbook from 1955 or 56. Whenever he graduated high school, I forget now. But it's an old yearbook, and we liked that. Me and Mike were kind of talking about what the end papers would be, because I told him we could do something with the end papers, because you designed the book. with Image. So I brought this idea of kind of, what if we use this design idea? And Mike loves that stuff. So, Mike Tybee, I'm talking Michael Tybee, the designer in the book. And, we scanned in the yearbook and we just used that as the end papers. And so it's just such a great, I don't know, it's like the greatest art class project of all time. I feel like,
Yeah, yeah,
for myself at least, like on my own end, not saying that everybody else should feel that way, but on my own, from my own perspective, I just feel that way. I just feel like it just really worked out.
yeah. It's one of those stories that as a sum of its parts, it's greater than what each of you brought to it. It kind of is just lightning in a bottle. And when I think about it in my mind, I just picture those silhouettes of Jeffrey's art, and especially the way he drew the hands of the kind of the people that are
Mhm.
zombified or whatever you want to call it, infected, and just the angular look of
Where
them.
they're very,
Yeah,
yeah, they're
yeah,
very,
that's what pops into my
yeah.
head, and it's so great. And I'm glad you mentioned the back matter because I meant to mention that you've got back matter in Brutal Dark as well, which really helps kind of enhance the story and enrich and helps to give that immersive feel. And we have the same thing here, which I know you had mentioned before when you came on. You also mentioned that possibly taking to another publisher, but also this back matter, which is enriching the story. Um, and again, it's just so much fun. And like we said about this having not an ending that's tied up with a nice neat bow, but that back matter does give you more of an ending, but also leads to possibly more in the future. So again, it's out this week, everybody. Again, it's a fantastic story. Highly recommend it. As a child of the Cold War, this is set obviously a little bit earlier than that, but as a child of Cold War was kind of that menace kind of hanging over you as you grew up. That's kind of the
Mhm.
menace I feel here, and talking about those panels that are all black. Tension is the perfect. Like I was so tense reading it because again, it's just you don't know what's going to happen. We can't even see because
Yeah, yeah. The
it's
characters can't see, you
yeah,
can't see.
yeah,
It's yeah. Again, it was kind of we could literally, like, if this was a movie, there was the possibility of walkouts. You know what I mean?
yeah.
So like that's that. So we took a risk, and I just feel like it paid off. You know, with dividends. So I'm really proud of the how we accomplished it, and I'm just again, the team was just phenomenal. It was just a great team to work with.
Yeah, so
And
yeah,
just real quick,
yeah, go ahead.
on Saturday, we are celebrating the release of the trade at a brewery called Bolero Snort Brewery in New Jersey, and they're actually creating two new craft beers that are branded News from the Fallout
Oh,
beers.
nice.
So they have a red snow sour and they have Old Joe's Pills. So we have two beers that are going to be available that are for the comic, and we're going to be celebrating on Saturday. I'm going to be there. Jeffrey Allen Love's going to be there, and Mike Tybey's going to be there. So we're all going to be able to sign your books if you're in the area.
Fantastic. You guys work so well together. Clearly, you and Jeffrey. Any
Hmm.
kind of plans to do something again with him in the future? Like, I'd love to see what whether you come back to this because there are things you could pull out or do something completely different with him. I love the aesthetic of this, and I think his art kind of just your imagination goes wild as a writer. I have to imagine things you could do with him.
Yeah, there's something we're talking about, and it's really exciting. Well, there's actually a few things. There's two other projects, as we were saying. This can kind of be our 60s story, and what if we did a 70s story, maybe an
Oh,
80s story?
nice.
So we're kind of exploring it from that, I guess, that kind of perspective. They're not going to be sequels or anything,
Right.
but they're going to be stories set in those eras. So we kind of want to do these stories through the ages. And the 70s, when I was just talking to Jeff today, actually, and just texting him and just saying, like, I had this idea for the thing that we were talking about. And it would be, in a really cool location on Earth, but maybe with implications of things off of Earth and things like that. So it's going to be really fun to get to play with like that kind of setting and a
Yeah.
vibe
Yeah.
with Jeff's great style.
Yeah, and I'm thinking about that, like his style too. He could slightly alter the style based on the time period, right? Like the 70s, if it got a little,
Hmm.
even though it's that same probably black and white
The
setting. Yeah, yeah,
poofy hair,
right,
sideburns, bell
right.
bottoms. Yeah, his stuff would look great in black and white
Yeah, or
in the 70s.
80s stuff where it would be kind of that 80s mod style, where probably the lines
Yeah,
are going to be a little bit more cleaner and a little more stark black and white as opposed to
yeah.
grayscale. Yeah, but yeah,
So
again, I mean,
there's
it's got to be exciting for you to be talking to him about these kind of things.
yeah, it's just yeah, it's super exciting, and he's game for anything, and that's what's so exciting about it is just that he's open to trying new and crazy things. Like with issue 5, we started this you know the book with this crazy opening where we go back in time
Right,
and we find
dinosaurs.
out that the reason the dinosaurs don't exist anymore is because they all became zombies. And it was just like the reason I did it was because Jeff's kid was super into dinosaurs, and I was like, well, here you can draw some dinosaurs,
Yeah, it
and
works.
I just kind of latched onto that idea, and it was great. And I there must be something in the water because now Tom Taylor is doing a Vertigo
Yeah,
book that's also zombie
yeah,
dinosaurs. But we technically treaded that ground first, so
yeah, 100%.
uh,
Yeah,
but it no, it
Necrotatious,
was
Necrotatious, everybody
yeah,
from Vertigo coming soon. So
yeah, and it looks great. I haven't read it yet, but it looks great.
yeah, I mean Derek Robertson, fantastic artist
Hmm.
as well.
Yeah.
Well, I mentioned it at the top, and again, we can't get too spoilery. We don't want to get Chris in any trouble, but the Ultimate line at Marvel has been doing fantastic. We talked about this the last time you were on, this Ultimate Wolverine, and kind of the structure that Jonathan Hickman, came up with, where it's happening sort of in real time. So we just had the Ultimate Lady Deathstrike show up in issue 14. But the other news that got announced at Comics Pro is that you're going to be doing another series later on that we'll touch on, kind of talking about building off of, I guess we could say, this the Spider-Man Incursion, Ultimate Spider-Man Incursion series, where Miles came back with some of
Hmm.
those origin boxes. But Ultimate Wolverine is winding down, and it really feels like such a linchpin series to, I mean, all the Ultimate books complement each other so well, and they all have such different tones. Um, like, is this one that you're going to miss writing? Because I feel like you have the pulse of this character down so well.
Yeah, I mean, from a certain perspective, yeah, like I look at it as, at the end of the day, I do feel like we've kind of said what we want to say with it,
Hmm.
so I'm happy to walk away from it. And I knew that there was a finite number of issues going into it. I thought it was going to be 12, and then we got extended, so we're now doing 16. So I kind of went into it knowing there was going to be an end. So I will miss it, and I loved what we did, and I was just talking to a friend about issue four, Ultimate Wolverine issue four, which is one of my favorite issues. Which is this, it turned into a divisive thing for fans, but it's one of my favorite pieces that I've written, where it's, Baron and Wolf fighting.
Hmm.
And yeah, I just really loved writing Wolverine. It was just so, I don't know, just getting into the head, the voice, and just, doing it and just, living my, childhood dream of when I used to dress up as Wolverine and run around. So I mean, it was uh, uh, a great privilege and honor to be able to do it, for as long as I was able to do it. And to have it be selling as well as it's been selling, and just knowing that we wound up with a Marvel Rivals skin, and fingers crossed there will be a skin in the new Wolverine game as well. I mean, that stuff is just so cool to me. I hope that we get an action figure as well. Like that's the kind of stuff that I'm like, like when I was like doing this stuff when I was growing up, like you could hope for, like he could kind of like, that was like almost like a dream. Like you'd have a
Yeah.
dream where there might be a toy that, something. But here you are, playing with toys. That's my job now. And so it's been the greatest, year and a half working with these characters. And then on top of the characters, I mean, working with the people that I've been working with on the book, Will Moss, uh, you know, Michelle Marchese, and Alessandro Cabuccio, of course, and Brian Valenza and Corey Petit. So it's really been just like a fantastic experience, like top to bottom, and just I've been very fortunate with the books that I've been doing, and spinning out of this obviously is going to be Reborn, and that already, I'm working on issues right now, but it already in just the creative process. I mean, working with Tom Groneman, the editor on the book, has been fantastic. He's amazing. He's great. He's um, very open to new ideas. He also has great ideas himself. Um, and then on top of that, working with Stefano Caselli, who's this undersung artist at Marvel Comics, and he's doing this awesome work, creating amazing new characters that have yet to be announced, but they're really exciting and really fun, and it's been fantastic. So I'm so glad that I was given this opportunity. A random email from Will Moss turned into this one of the top selling books Marvel had last year, and turned into an exclusive for me at Marvel, and then a spin-off from the Ultimate Universe. So it's kind of just crazy to look at the trajectory that this is all kind of had. Um, it's I don't know. It's really humbling and amazing. I'm really really excited for people to reach the end of the book, and there's a the end is issue 16 kind of, but really there's going to be an epilogue in a one shot, and that's really the ending, and that's the thing that I'm really looking forward to, is just because that I've had that was originally the ending in the original outline, and I kind of had to kick it because we were changing what the book was going to be, and then we moved it to be issue 12 was going to end the way issue 12 ended. So I didn't have that ending anymore, and then all of a sudden we could do the ending now. So it was kind of nice to be able to go back and actually get to play with the things that we wanted to play with from the start. So it's a really I don't know how to frame it other than just to say that it's been a fantastic opportunity.
Yeah, I mean the whole Ultimate line has been great, and we'll come
Yes.
back to Reborn Ultimate Impact in just a second. Again, we can't get spoiler to everybody, but I do want to ask you because it's mentioned in the solicit about new characters. So I do have a question about that, but before we do that, you mentioned being able to work with fantastic people on the Ultimate Wolverine book, but really the whole Ultimate line. I mentioned how each of the books has a different tone, but they tie in so well with kind of the overall story and this concept that Jonathan Hickman came up with of telling them in real time. So we know, Ultimate Endgame is going to be kind of the finale for this version of the Ultimate Universe, and then there is this Ultimate finale issue that's coming out that all of you that have been involved in the Ultimate Universe are, getting a chance to collaborate on. So I imagine that must have been a joy, but also a little bit bittersweet to kind of put this issue together.
Yeah, that this is what I was just talking about. Yeah, this is essentially, it's like I like to consider it our ending. It's like sort of an epilogue, but it is bittersweet, but it's also we're going out on a high note, and that was always kind of the idea. And I think it was a smart idea. I think it was a risky idea, but I think it was a smart idea and an interesting idea. And I feel like that's what you want in comics, is to have interesting ideas. Be going out and like, be pushing the boundaries and doing something different. Because I mean, they could be doing not. I'm loving the absolute stuff, but they're not going to stop making the
Right.
absolute books. And so this was kind of a risky, doing something different. That's what's so exciting about it. But yeah, I mean, this is a good way to send off, the universe, and to have everybody, have their little piece, um, and do it all together. Not doing it in separate books, but in one single book. And I'm super excited for people to read this book.
Yeah, and I know
Um,
there's so many Marvel fans out there that are disappointing its ending, but there's part of me that's disappointing that it's ending too because it's been so good this entire Ultimate Universe, but at the same time
mhm.
to allow it to just be its own thing that has a beginning, middle, and end. Like you said, to your point, that just doesn't happen in American comics. And so I love the idea that it's going to kind of be its own thing. And then, we have the origin boxes. We have Reborn Ultimate Impact coming, and who knows what could come of that. I mentioned the solicitation, talking about possible new characters coming from these origin boxes. Are you creating all of them? Are you getting input from other people? Like, what's that? Can you give any kind of clues? Again, don't get yourself in any trouble. But I'm just sort of curious if it's like,
No,
input from
not
others
trouble.
and kind of that kind of thing.
Yeah, so it was kind of so when I was initially approached with the book, and I actually turned it down just because I didn't have the space in my schedule to be able to do it, and it's kind of a big book.
Mm-hmm.
So I just didn't have the time to kind of commit to it. So I passed on it initially, and then at the Marvel Summit last year, um, Tom and Nick Lowe approached me again and said, "Hey, like, I know you passed on this, but we're kind of thinking about certain things here." And at the Marvel Summit, we kind of as a committee, just started throwing ideas around about power sets and things like that. And so that was really the only part that was, any input from anybody else. Everything else was kind of just, what do you want to do, Chris? And so I kind of went away and, picked what I thought were my favorite power sets and what I thought would be interesting to play with. And, what if we do a spin on this and a spin on this? And, yeah, so that was kind of the idea, was to just kind of like push things into interesting territories and be able to get to and yeah, it's just so fun for me to get to what one of the characters is. I won't reveal what it's an homage to yet because they haven't announced what it is, but it's an homage to one of my favorite bands when I was growing up.
Oh, okay.
And so it was really fun for me to get to do that and to get to kind of play with that in a interesting, unique way. But yeah, Marvel has been really great, and they're not breathing down my neck and saying we need this, we need this, we need this. They just left me alone and said you do what you want to do. The only thing that was kind of, you know, somebody had mentioned, and they were like, yeah, that we actually really like that because we also have the TV show coming out, was Wonder Man.
Yeah.
So they really wanted Wonder Man in this. So that was kind of the only thing that was, we would really like this in the book. And I was like, okay, you got it. And then, I've seen recently that they announced that Hostilicus that's going to be in the book, is the big bad in the book, and he's one of the big bads, I should say. And I just love this character. He's so cool. He's like, he's just like a classic bad guy, and I love the name. I love the name playing off of Annihilus, and that's he's covered in Annihilus's body,
Right. Yeah.
and he leads a faction of people in the in the negative zone called that they're the followers of Annihilus, and they're locked in a forever war with Blastar's children. And both Blastar and Annihilus are like ancient gods now. Like nobody ever remembers actually seeing them or knowing them.
Oh, wow.
But they fight and kill for these gods. And Annihilus so Hostilicus leads the followers of Annihilus, and he leads them into battle every day, and that's what he does. And sort of, what happens with that, I guess we'll have to see. I'm going to wait for Marvel to tease a little bit more.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I don't want to, reveal too much, but it's just great fun to kind of play with that setup and get to kind of create that setup too. He's in the 6160 negative zone, so it's kind of playing with this idea of like what's the Ultimate Universe negative zone like, and is Annihilus alive there? Is he not? So you're playing with these ideas and kind of building your own. Again, it's just like playing with toys. Just like being like that'd be cool.
Yeah, mixing that. What I love about it is mixing the old with the new. I mean, you're taking a couple of classic Fantastic Four, villains created by Stan and Jack, and introducing, bringing them into the most kind of recent, invention of Marvel, the 6160, which is just great, with the kind of the newest Spider-Man, on the block, Miles Morales, who's a fantastic character. Was he somebody who's, as a character, whose voice that you found kind of easily? What's it been like writing him?
Yeah, I mean, I do what I do every time I write a new character. I read as much of their, their work as I can, or the works that are, that are centered around them as I can, and try to, get a good grasp on what their voice is. And I feel like I picked it up pretty quickly and just kind of got it. But then again, that's, I live in New Jersey, and I travel into the city all the time, so it's like, I mean, people like Miles are, people that I know. So it's not a leap for me to, be writing people like that. But the new Wonder Man, name is Vin, and and he lives on the street and in the apartment that I used to live on in Jersey City, and he works in Bayonne. And it's so, I've been trying to very, wisely trying to, put some more New Jersey into the Marvel universe. There's touches of it here and there, but I'm like, let's just like put more in as we can. So there's another character now in Jersey City and Bayonne and just like kind of introducing stuff like that. But I would wish I could talk about more of the characters because they are fun. But there's about, what is there? Three more characters, I think. Plus, so there's about like five or six characters, including Miles, I think. So it's quite a fast-paced book too. And it's, you kind of have to be on your feet and be pushing things and get to, on top of that, be playing with characters that are, appearing, throughout the established characters in the
Right.
616 as well, who are showing up here and there. Not just Miles. So, and that's super exciting to get to play with as well. And I know Stefano was very excited to be playing with some of those characters. Some
Yeah,
of those characters that he never got to play with before. So,
yeah, heavy lifting for him though, drawing so many characters. I imagine at times.
I think he loves it, Jeff. He like Jeff. He's just so game for anything, and he's really great. And he always just says like, "I'm here to serve the script," and I'm like, "Well, I'm here to serve your art. So like, let's do this the best we can." And he's really just been fantastic. And the best kind of people in this industry are the people that you could just shoot a text back and forth with, and that's who Stefano is, and Tom as well. So it's really been a fantastic experience thus far, and I can't imagine it going sideways. But it's really been a fantastic experience, and like even though I initially turned it down, like I'm like, geez, this is so fun.
Yeah.
I wish I had just said yes to this in the first place, but also I don't know if it would have been this book in the first
Right.
place.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm kind of glad we had that extra time to kind of build it a little bit more. And I'm just truly, truly, I'm just having such a great time. So Stefano, we're just, we're having a blast.
Great. Well,
What else? What more could you want
yeah,
from
yeah. Well,
your
and
comic book creators?
that's the thing. When you guys are having fun creating it, we as readers you have that much more fun reading
Yeah.
it. So May 20th for the first issue, everybody. I'm going to remind you again: pre-order, pre-order, pre-order. Obviously, this is one that's going to be on retailers' radars, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't let them know that you want a copy, which covers you want, like all that kind of stuff. Another new series that you have coming that got announced recently. We talk about working with legendary creators. Maybe you guys have heard of Charlie Adler from The Walking Dead. We have a book called Of the Earth, and you have a co-writer on it as well.
Hmm.
And I got a chance to see a couple preview pages when Image sent the press release. There's a couple of, I think they're the first couple pages of the first issue. This is something that seems very emotional, very intimate story, but also kind of leaning into those things that you're so good at, which is kind of the human condition, if you will. So why don't you let everybody know what this book is about and kind of give us a little behind the scenes of what the creative process has been so far working with your team.
Yeah. So this is so Of the Earth. It's also out on May 20th. So May 20th is I don't know why it's like it should be my birthday or something, but it's not. But yeah, Of the Earth is an eco horror neo noir story. It is about a woman named Tabitha Tabby Black. She is on the run from her past. She got herself mixed up in some bad stuff, and she's trying to clean up her act, and she doesn't know where to go. So where do you go when things go rough? You go home. And so she's heading back to a place called Solitude in Texas. And when she arrives there, she finds an oil well, which is a wildcatting well, and some dark secrets and other things happen. So it's called Of the Earth because it's the best salts of the earth people. It's also called Of the Earth because there is some dark ancient things beneath the soil, and maybe they're going to come out.
Yeah, and from the pages I've seen so far, really great work from Try. I mean, I'm not used to seeing his work in color,
Yeah.
and yeah, I was blown away. I found myself going back and looking at the pages after I finished reading the preview pages, going back and just enjoying the art.
Yeah, no, Pip and Charlie together is just like blowing, mind blowing. It's just Pip's colors are just amazing on this book, and Haas's letters as well. But yeah, we kind of say we're doing an interesting thing in the book, which I don't really want to say too much about. But the pages that you see are the first comic book pages, but there's actually going to be a little bit before that. But I don't really want to
Right.
reveal too much. But it's kind of interesting. I think different. I can't really think of anything that's done it in the past to the extent that we did. Um, and um, yeah, it's just we're kind of setting it up in a way where it's we want it to feel intimate, like you said, and quiet in a way. And we've definitely have that decompressed feeling that I think that a lot of my stuff does, just because I feel like that's I want to spend time with these characters and I want to get to know them and I want to really kind of bask in the tension of certain scenes. And if you don't do decompressed storytelling, you kind of lose that a little bit. And yeah, it might be a little more fast paced, and you might get more story in an issue. But I very much prefer telling a story like this, where you are getting to spend time with these characters, you're getting to know these characters, you're getting to know their environment, and really playing up those suspenseful, thrilling moments. And there's plenty of them in this book.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I just wanted to talk a little bit about the creative team because you mentioned
Yeah. Go
Charlie.
ahead.
Obviously, Charlie is obviously a legend, and I'm so honored that he wanted to work with me on this. And I pitched him in, and he was just like, "Yeah, let's do it." And I told him I want to co-write this with a buddy of mine, Andrew. Andrew and I have known each other for a number of years. I got to know him when I worked for Joe Dante, the film director with Gremlins and Inner Space and The Burbs. And we kind of hit it off there. We were both, at a Trailer from Home meeting, and we started talking after the meeting, and we're finding out like, oh, we have the same interests, we have the same likes, we do the same things, we write, and we wanted to direct, and just we kind of saw things eye to eye, and so we started writing things together way back when. So he actually did, because I did Far Down Below and Mad Cave last year. Before that was ever a comic. It was a screenplay, and he actually co-wrote a version of that screenplay with me at one point, just because I wanted to see what we could do together that I couldn't do alone, and certain things like that. So we had experience collaborating before, but we never done anything like this. So this was an interesting kind of experiment too, and which is, I think, a through line on my career is doing things that pushing myself into uncomfortable positions and trying to see if I can if we can succeed doing something different. And this is a circumstance where I had the story, I wrote the outline myself, and then I brought Andrew on, and I wrote the first issue, and then we revised it together, and then he wrote the second issue, and then we revised it together, and then I wrote the third, and then we did that, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and then the sixth issue we split, and then revised together. And the reason we're doing the revisions together is because I wanted it to feel, peace. Obviously, we're not the same writers. We have the same sensibilities. We're not the same writers, so I wanted to make sure everything feels the same. And I don't think that the first issue doesn't feel. I don't think the second issue either. And Andrew wrote it. I don't think it doesn't feel like it doesn't belong in my, my library of works at this
Right.
point. So I'm really very excited about how it's coming together. And just, again, this is another one of those circumstances where like the team is just fantastic, and I just feel like this is a thing where one of those kind of stories where I didn't know what it was, and I was like, is it a prose thing? Is it a film? Is it a comic? Like, what is it? And, Charlie started talking about wanting to work with me, and I was like, okay, well, let's find the right thing. And I had this idea, and at one point I was kind of talking to Jeff Love about doing this, and that would be interesting, but, um, Charlie is really great at character work, very much like Jake is. Um, and, obviously I'm just a big fan of his, so I was like, you know what, this is a really great, there's some great sequences in that first issue. A very intense sequence that's not in those preview pages that immediately follows those preview pages, and that's actually was kind of the starting point of the whole story. Was they came up with this story, this thing that happens on a highway. It's very intense, and I think we'll find out who wants to keep reading the book after this. So, and I really wanted to just put something out there that was, something I would want to read, something that I would want to pick up on when I go to the comic shop, see on the shelf, pick it up, and be like, "Ooh, this is cool. Like, I want to read this." And that's all I do with every book that I do, and this is another one of those. And I just, it's 6 issues, like the past couple of books I'm doing, and hopefully going forward, the next couple of books with Hassan Otsmanelhau and letters. Mike Tivey's doing the design, and he's doing a killer job on it. Charlie Adler's obviously doing the artwork. Andrew's co-writing with me, and he's doing a great job. And really, the reason I wanted to work with Andrew, by the way, outside of just him being my buddy, is that he's a writer. He's a great writer. And he's a great horror writer. And he has the same kind of like neo-noir, pulpy sensibilities that I do. But unfortunately, he's never had the chance to kind of show himself, to show what he can do. So I wanted to, I feel like I'm in a very fortunate position where people are buying my stuff and reading my stuff, and I'm not like just putting my name over the top, and saying like this is, it's written by this guy, and no, this is co-written. We're like fully co-writing this sentence, but it's giving him a chance to get his work out there and have people see that he can do the work. And then hopefully, he can take this and then branch off and do something really cool on his own. And that's my hope. So, I just, I wanted to give him a leg up in the industry because that's all that I ever wanted when I was, growing up and trying to do this kind of stuff.
No, it's
and I was able to put my foot in the door. Yeah, so.
Yeah, it's fantastic, kind of paying it forward. One of the things I found interesting about those previews, so fast-paced in what happens, and we get little hints of, you mentioned her past rep. I got this undercurrent of melancholy, and then that got me thinking about the setting of Texas, and there's so much, wide open space, and I wonder if we're going to get those kind of empty vistas with Charlie's. Don't tell me because I want to experience it for myself, but this is why I'm excited, because I don't know where it came from, because like I said, I went back and looked at the art after, and I'm like, where am I getting this melancholy feeling from? And I think maybe that's just the genius of Charlie Adler with the kind of body language of the characters. And so I'm very curious to see what the overall feeling is, if you will.
Yeah, melancholy is a very good way of putting it. I mean, this is the story of a woman coming home.
Yeah.
And kind of she hasn't been home in over a decade. And hasn't spoken to. It's her grandma's home. Her grandma raised her, and she hasn't talked to her in a decade. So it's kind of it's a very intense emotional experience to go back home and to feel like you need to go back home.
Right. Yeah.
And for most of us, that can be a positive experience. It could have traumatic, negative experiences as well. But going home can have certain nostalgic, positive feelings, and unfortunately, she goes home to something bad happening. But there's definitely that sort of melancholy in the story and in the character. And I hope that plays through. And I mean, that's what Charlie is so great at too is just kind of, again, like Jake, just getting into the characters
Yeah.
and portraying that through the character and yeah, and then I think also that part of that is Pep's colors, and not to, because I feel like colors often get kind of overlooked, and when you read a review of comics, like people don't really know how to talk about colors. But what Pip is doing really well in this book is evoking emotions through the colors that she's using. And she's worked very closely with Charlie on these issues, and she's just knocking it out of the park. And I think she did great work on Everything Dead and Dying, the Event Horizon book she did. And it's exciting for me because she also got her start doing Texas Blood,
Right.
doing the
Yeah.
color assists for Jake. But I do, not just saying this, I do believe this is career best work from her. There's some really cool stuff that happens, and she just nailed it. Because I mean, Charlie's inks are amazing. You know, they're amazing as they are, but you add on Pip's colors, and it just like elevates it. And then again, once Haas gets it, he elevates it. And it's just like, and then once you put Mike's design on it and you put together the PDF and you see what it looks like with the cover, with the inside cover and the whole thing, and you're like, wow, this is a package. Like
Yeah.
this is like a package that works. So, I'm just super excited for people to read it. Um,
Well, even that cover
it's,
that we have up on the screen right now, I mean, that's a cover that's going to grab your attention, Almost like
yeah,
those old school 60s, 70s Marvel, where it was that kind of picture frame, I think they call it. It's just
yeah.
very, very,
Well,
very
yeah, that's
striking.
the thing we're gonna do for every cover is we're gonna have this frame, and then the back cover as well is kind of a similar thing. And then we're also doing. There's a great. You'll have to just wait and see for this reveal when they actually reveal it. But there's the image asked us if we wanted to do a poster, and Charlie actually drew up a whole different image for the poster, and it's an homage to a classic film, classic horror film. But it's just you think that's eye catching just when to see the poster. It's just really cool. And yeah, it's just I don't know. It's amazing to work with him just to see what he comes up with and see what he delivers every day. Um, yeah, it's just it's a great great opportunity that I have to work with these people.
Awesome. Well, remember, everybody, May 20th for both the Reborn Impact and Of the Earth. Now's the time, like I said before, to let your comic shop know that you want to pre-order. Can't quite pre-order this next book yet, but going to be coming later this year as well.
Yeah,
Didn't know you were a big Star Wars guy,
I
but I should
am.
guess I should have known when you're kind of an age. Don't have a release date for this one yet, but you are getting a chance to work on Darth Vader. Is this another bucket list character and project for you?
Yeah, I did. I mean, I didn't know I was. I never thought I'd get the chance to do this. I thought it'd be cool. But yeah, this was yeah, I was offered this project, and I was just like, what? Because I mean, Darth Vader's cool enough, but then Darth Vader in Rogue One, it was like that scene in Rogue One was what everybody had waited,
Yeah.
40 years for. And so, kind of approaching this issue with that in mind was let's do that again. Like let's kind of capitalize on what that moment was because that's to me what Darth Vader in Rogue One was because going back and like watching Andor and Rogue One and kind of thinking like because I in preparation I rewatched that and just was like, well, how does Vader fit into this? And like honestly he doesn't really fit in at all, you know but it was like, what, how does he fit in? And it's like, oh, he fits in because he's just like a hammer that comes down.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, that's what he's got to be then. So I kind of had this image in my head, um, which I don't want to say too much because I ruin it. But it's a very exciting spin on a real world event. But it's a Darth Vader badassery is all I'll say.
Well, I think it's a great analogy calling him a hammer because that's the thing about Vader. that that saying, "You're a hammer, everything looks like a nail," and that's the way
Yeah.
he kind of deals with life, right? He's a hammer, and to him, everything else
Well,
is just a
yeah.
nail.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's accurate. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, I do have to mention this. We've talked about it before several times, and I reached out to you when I read the final issue of Green Arrow, and I told you how much I enjoyed it. And again, a little bit bittersweet, but was the perfect ending. So I do have to ask about this as well. What was fan reaction? Was it what you had hoped?
Yeah, it was. Look, I really poured my heart and soul into that issue, and I mean that's not hyperbole. Like I really, really tried to craft something that was going to feel special, and I knew it was the final issue. Um, I wished we had some more time with it, but at the same time, you're only given so much runway with these kinds of stories. Comics is a fast-paced medium. If you're not selling, you got to get out of the way and let somebody else step in. Um, but I did know that we had fans, regardless of sales. Like even if the sales weren't, hit, what levels that DC needed it to keep it going, there still were fans that were really, passionate about the book. So I wanted to make sure that we did something for them and did right by them and did right by the characters. And I think I might have mentioned this the last time I was on, but I kind of started writing with this kind of idea in mind, and then it turned into something else entirely. Like I didn't know that it was going to be about Benitez when I started writing it,
You're
and then
talking
I
about
realized it
specifically the
was.
the finale.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I didn't know that it was going to be about her. I didn't know that this was her story, and then I started writing it, and it hit me, and I was like, oh my God, and this needs to be it.
Yeah, it was perfect.
And it just everything the pieces started to fit together because in issue 18 the flashlight and it was like, oh, okay, and then it just kind of all like kind of hit, and I was like, oh, whoa, okay, so this is all kind of getting to like a place where it was all kind of all the pieces were fitting together. And the fan reaction was just fantastic. I gotta say, everybody really was. They seemed to love it. Really, we got a few notes from people that they were teary-eyed reading it, which
Oh, I
is,
was. I got misty
uh,
for sure.
yeah, I mean, well, I get misty writing it, so if I'm getting those emotions writing it, you kind of hope that that translates into
Yeah.
the final product. And I've been so fortunate to be working with great people like Montos on the book, and he just knocked it out of the park. Did every issue. There was no fill-in artist. He did every issue, and he
Yeah.
knocked it out of the park. Whether we're doing, these bombastic action sequences, or if we're doing a quiet talky issue,
Hmm.
it was which this was. But I wanted to end on something that was sentimental, emotional, and got down to the core of the characters. Um, and I thought, once I realized that it was about Benitez, it kind of became clear, like, oh yeah, like she was a creation of ours from, issue 18.
Yeah.
It made sense to kind of have this story be between her and Green Arrow, and not have it be about Green Arrow and Black Canary, or Green Arrow and the Arrow family, or whatever we could have done with it. Because there was a number of ways that we could have gone with it. Because again, I didn't know that we were going to end the book until, oh, I want to say maybe like June of last year, June or July. Um, and so I kind of was like, okay, because I was already thinking about what other characters we could pull, and I'm like, okay, we can't pull other characters. What can we do here with an ending? And I had briefly kind of played with the idea of, because Josh opened his story with Ollie washing up onto the shores of an island, and I was like, well, that could be a fun thing to play with, that we bookend it. But again, it just felt like the right thing to do wasn't to bookend it. with Josh's work or to do something that was Arrow family forward. It was to play with what we were doing in our stories,
Yeah.
which was to be telling emotionally resonant, real feeling stories, personal stories, and we got to do that. And it really is. It's an honor that so many people felt so strongly about it. We're so we're so emotionally impacted by the story, considering it's only 20 pages. But people love these characters, and they really responded to our two arcs that we did. Um, and yeah, the ending was just I felt like it was a really strong ending, and I really felt it felt like it was powerful to me, um, and felt like it was some of the best work that I had done, um, in terms of Big Two and working with other people's characters, but also just in general, I felt like it was a really strong piece, from myself and from my collaborators, and just and I just again wanted to do right by the readers and the character, and I I'm really fortunate that they let us do it,
Yeah. Again,
which was
I
kind
thought
of
yeah, I thought it was
go
perfect.
ahead.
Uh, because again, talking about who this character is and has been, this kind of social justice warrior that, and
Yeah,
the world that we live in right now, right?
yeah.
And your whole run really kind of epitomized who he is. So to finish it on that, to remind us it's about connection, human connection.
Hmm.
No matter how bleak the world gets and how insane things are and whatever, you can still connect to somebody. Because it's not like Ollie and Benitez always got along, right? But
Oh
at
yeah,
the
no,
end,
not at all.
they had that connection that went back farther than Ollie realized, and something good can come of that. And so, I don't know. I just thought it was an important message, not to get too corny about it, but yeah, just thought it was
Yeah,
perfect.
thank you. Yeah, it really meant a lot when I got your text when you read it, and just to see the outpouring on Blue Sky, and I have a public email, TexasBloodComic@gmail.com. I've got a couple of people emailing there. Yeah, just it meant a lot, I mean, because it's not every day that you write a big two book that connects with people in that way,
Yeah,
you know. Um, and I was fortunate to have done that, and to have felt that way myself. It wasn't just a job, at that point. It was, trying to, I, I mean, you kind of say yes to these things as a job, but then, especially when it's a character like Green Arrow, is like a character that I've, loved for years and years and years, and really always kind of thought he was great, cool. Like never thought I'd write him, but then they offered me the character, and it's like, oh, that's cool. What can I do with that? And like from the start, I was able to tell this Love Canal-esque story that I'd wanted to tell forever, and then just then getting to go back to Snowbirds Don't Fly, and then to end it with this, it was a really special 2 arc run, and you know it, it's again, like I said before, I mean, it's a fast-paced medium, uh, but I also I hope people don't forget it, you know. So I hope that that emotional impact is still there for people, and people will remember that, because it was a short period of time. It was only really a year,
right.
we got to tell stories. Um, but I'm immensely proud of the work. I think it's some of the best work that I've done, and I'm really honored that I was given the time to get to do what we did. So
Well, I'll be recommend. I mean, if anybody's interested in Green Arrow, it's one of those, to me, seminal eras, and you want to get to the core of who he is. It's one I'll be
thank you.
recommending. But it's time to let Chris go. Everybody, thank you so much for being generous with your time and talking about so many different things with us. Um, I do want to mention, last time you were on, you talked about that Texas Blood coming out. We haven't had any, official news. I'm not asking for, official, but
Soon,
sometime
soon,
can we say sometime in 2026 for the people that are
sometime. Yes, an announcement should be coming in the next couple weeks,
oh,
I'd
okay.
say.
So yeah, so sooner than later, everybody. Um, But I do also want to give you a chance, Chris, to talk about your Patreon, because that's really, and your newsletter that you do with Jacob, because I think that's really the best place. Even I get new, I'm a subscriber. That's where I get news, and it's really the best place to keep up with your work and Jake's work and what have you. So you want to tell everybody where they can find that?
Sure, yeah. It's patreon.com/Condon Phillips. I share it with Jacob. And yeah, it's a really fun, spot where we have a great community. I do a podcast every month. I do a newsletter. Jacob does a newsletter. We sometimes do videos. We do polls. We chat with people. If you send us a message, we respond. We're really open. And yeah, you get exclusive peeks behind things, and I'll post scripts. Jacob will post inks or process videos, things like that. So if you're curious about making comics or what goes into a comic, it's a great place to find it. So again, it's patreon.com/Condon Phillips.
Yeah, and I'll put a link, everybody, in the show notes, so you can go click there if you're having trouble finding it. And I put the cover up for Brutal Dark one more time because Chris talks about behind the scenes. Jacob gave a whole behind the scenes of this when he broke it down, laying it out, why he chose the colors and everything. So yeah, again, if you're curious about making comics, it's a great place to go and get advice. Or if you're just like me and love seeing the process stuff, it's a great place to go as well. So highly recommend it. Again, link in the show notes to check it out. And don't forget, coming up March 25th is the second issue. So we'll be obviously reviewing it on the Spotlight. But now's your time to go pick up issue 1, get ready for issue 2, and get caught up. So again, Chris, always great to talk to you, man. We always have the best chats. I really appreciate your time.
Absolutely, thank you.
And to everybody out there in the audience, we appreciate you joining us as well, and we'll talk to you next time.